Hi, hello, salut, bonjour. I hope you're doing very well from wherever you're watching. I'm glad to have you on board. And I continue the series, the civic education series on the Republic of Cameroon, especially with the presidential elections. And that just closed on October 12, 2025. And today we're almost 3 days after the polls closed. Still, no preliminary results have been made public. And as it stands, there's lots of speculations, so much to be said on social media. We know that Issa Tchiroma Bakary, the front runner, has made a public declaration that shows he believes that with the procès-verbaux that he has in his possession and that he knows from the team on the field that he won and the people spoke and they spoke in their immense majority. On the other side, we hear the Minister Atanganji Paul, who has made sure he threatened Issa Tchiroma Bakary to refrain from such utterances and to know that it's not their right and their place to proclaim results up until the Constitutional Council says so. And ministers like Gregor Warner have also come on their own front to say they know that everything points to the fact that Issa Tchiroma Bakary did not win this election, and therefore everybody should stay calm and stay put, for they know what they are talking about. And you can see on media platforms, both sides and all are coming up to say different things about these elections. Some have even said, like I can quote Mr. Elimbi Lobe, who says that it's impossible to have the results, come up, whereas it's not been 48 hours yet for ELECAM divisional offices to have the results to be able to proclaim anything based on the fact that there are almost 32,000 polling stations around the country and abroad. And so this procès-verbaux cannot have been submitted because people like Anissa Ekane from Manidem and the Union pour le Changement, those groups, those people that have come out to support that Issa Tchiroma Bakary has won the elections, that they are not founded. They don't know what they're talking about. And so I come to you with a lot of facts that I want to platter today. And because the youth of Cameroon they are the soul of the nation, but they have been sidelined in all of this. Because need I remind you that the population of Cameroon is around 30 million people. And of this population, over 60% is below the ages of 25. Let me repeat that. Around 60% of the population is under 25 years old. And therefore, it tells you that half of the population has only known one president for over 43 years. And that should tell you being under a tight grip and a tight regime. So the question is, with the digital age that we are today, do you see the youth as creative as they are, dynamic, industrious, and dreaming of a future? Where is the hope? Because in this whole quagmire, as we can call it, when they say the elephants are fighting is the grass that suffers. And at this point, we bring you the facts and to present to you the situation on ground. Now, let's begin with the silence. Why the silence? Why is it impossible to have preliminary results? And as we talked about just recently, we talk about the law. Now, what does the law say exactly? Cameroon's Electoral Code, because the good thing about Cameroon is that the law, the legal framework is very robust, well written, well spelled out. But it's so funny at times because the application process, it almost seems like it's, let me not say rocket science anymore, rocket surgery. Article or Section 113 of the Electoral Code, which was put together in 2012, clearly states that the results of each polling station, immediately they are being counted, must be proclaimed, shall be proclaimed. In law, shall means must, shall be proclaimed publicly, which means that the polls close at 6 p.m. Therefore, within a few hours, because I can also tell you this, each polling station cannot have more than 500 voters. And if you do the math, 500 voters multiplied by almost 32,000 polling stations is not even 15 million. And yet, the total register of ELECAM is not above 8 million for the 2025 elections. not above 8 million, so to speak. So 8 million people, thereabout, registered to vote. And right now, we don't yet know the voter participation, which means it could be below. And if it's below, it tells you that not every polling station had close to 500 voters. And therefore, the tally process and the counting doesn't take that much time. And the law says as soon as that tally is done, that result is public information. What does that tell you? It debunks all those who say that only the ruling CPDM party has representatives in all these polling stations. In a functioning democracy, it's not even necessary for a party to be in that polling station for the results of that polling station to go in their favor. It's not as if the representative, being a representative in a polling station automatically means that your party has to win in that polling station. We need to be very, very careful when we listen to some of these analyses because they don't hold weight. Because again, the law is there for everybody to protect everyone. The Electoral Code doesn't say because a politician does not have a representative in a polling station, therefore the results cannot favor them. So therefore, all the other parties that have representatives in these polling stations, and they know the official results, because again, the same law says after the results have been counted, after the ballots have been counted, and the official result is there, or which means the public result, because each polling station makes their information public. Public here means everybody can know about it at that polling station. And that is why we're talking about technology. This is not 1990. This is not 1992 when the first multi-party presidential elections took place in Cameroon, where it was impossible, to have the technology that we have today. Therefore, it's very simple that people take photographs, document the process, take the videos like we told you. You see them, the videos are there that show the counting process. Therefore, these results can be easily tabulated. No fuss. We are not saying that results become official, which means what? You don't make a tabulation and then declare someone a winner. That is not what we're saying. We're saying those results, those numbers can be published, and then each and every one can draw a conclusion. And that's why we brought you the reference that in the north of Cameroon in 2018, 2 million votes came from Issa Tchiroma Bakary and the UNDP, Belobo Magari, and also part of the CPDM. The rest of the country did not vote for more than 500,000 rather. So the incumbent won the 2018 elections with a total popular vote of not more than 2.5 million voters, because the voter apathy was so high because of the ongoing Anglophone crisis in the regions of Northwest and Southwest that crippled, and also people were just fed up, and the country was just dabbling with all of these issues. Boko Haram in the north, and then the Anglophone crisis and all that. So that goes to tell you that with these two people withdrawn from the process, Issa Tchiroma Bakary taking his votes away, UNDP candidate Belobo Magari taking his votes away, that leaves a struggling CPDM in the north. And by so doing, you could tell, because the incumbent, the only place he showed up for a campaign, so to speak, or a rally or a public display, was in the far north region in Marwa. And that sufficed as a campaign. But again, let's not digress. Our focus is on the silence, the law, and why it's difficult not to have preliminary results. Because with preliminary results, you'll be able to dispel all the falsehoods. And it's easy to know because the citizens are capturing data. They were there, they have the raw data. People have videos, they have photographs. Unless it will be termed again that they are not admissible in the court of law, or when the process of post-electoral petitions are taking place. Now, that brings us to something very important. During the electoral process, it's almost as if it's to be celebrated when an election is conducted in serenity. It's supposed to be the norm. In a respectable country, people should be able to vacate to their various occupations and still go and vote. The places must not be locked down and all that kind of constraint, because that is what proceeds with fear. That's what makes people panic. Some people are anxious every time they hear elections. That is not supposed to be the case. Calm and serenity should prevail, but there should also be some decorum. And that starts with opening up the floor and making sure that communication and information is public. You would think that there should be a centralized website for ELECAM where they can publish their data. As soon as they're calculating their information from the polling stations, it should be popping up live. The technology is there today. We saw during the pandemic, courtrooms, parliaments across the world were able to conduct very important business, top level, countries with very high GDP, high standard of living, were able to conduct important business and even of national security, international security, with ease, using technology. Zooms and all the like came to light. Why is it impossible that in a country with a small electoral database of less than 8 million people, are we going to cite Nigeria? Are we going to cite Ghana? Let's not even go to Senegal. The information is there. But why is it kept secret? If it's the truth, it should be made public, and that would dispel all the speculations. And that's why we're bringing to you the facts to say, this is what the citizens are observing, and it's important that there is some high-level education on civics for people to get this part so that there is no speculation and nobody should feel like they are being attacked. And that takes us to, we've said the law is clear. The silence and the threats is not necessary. Because instead of transparency, it's warnings. Why issue warnings? We hear of reports of gendarmerie troops parading the streets of Garoua, especially close to the residence of Issa Tchiroma Bakary. The reason why his name keeps coming up is because up until now, he's the only one that has taken the bold step to declare himself. And that also, the situation on ground is starting to comfort those who even look at the whole electoral process as a sham. Oh yes. Because there are folks who don't believe in this electoral process. And it's because of things like this. Because according to them, a candidate like Issa Tchiroma Bakary is not saint and is not trustworthy. Some even believe that he may be a disguised spoiler from the regime, because breaking out in June and within this short space of time, finding himself to be the front runner and the flag bearer of the people, and is now declaring victory. And some are beginning to think that he will be subdued and he will not be able to withstand the pressure. And if he does cave in and not withstand the pressure, if truly he won, then that will comfort those who believe that it's impossible to have free, fair, and transparent elections in Cameroon. This is the best opportunity for the regime in place to show an example of political maturity and democratic values. Because if these results that we see everywhere plastered online from reputable sources, if it's real, then it's time to pass the baton. There's no room to negotiate a power deal. Because if the people said they want change, so be it. This is a moment to not deprive the people that have been thirsty for a certain change. And that does not mean that the existing incumbent and the regime is bad to the point where it's impossible for them to do a handover properly. No, it's possible. People just need to come to the realization that everything comes to an end. I'm sure during the years of slavery, some people never wanted to give up, but that too came to an end. So there are circumstances where things can happen that will force a country to rethink its processes. And it sounds like this is one of them. And the facts on the ground show, when you see a candidate like Joshua Osei acknowledging that the result he knows are telling him that they did not perform well, what results did he know? It means that the results are somewhere, parading the quarters. Because if he's acknowledging defeat, then they got to be a winner. Cabral Libi is not doing any better. He's not saying something clear and concise as to who won, because there's been some documentation on the internet. Oh, maybe it's fake, it's not real, it's fake. But what is the truth? This is not some game. The life of a nation is at stake. This is serious business. People need to own up and speak up. Because when there's a void, nature doesn't like a void. And that's why citizen journalists, those that are doing work on the ground, those that are gathering information, civil society, and people that were at these polling stations, that's why you saw people voted. They went home, came back to stand and control the vote, because they wanted to see that this time around, that fraud they've been hearing about, they want to witness it. And lo and behold, there are some instances of irregularities, as they like to call them. We are not going to say that the president of the republic is the one that is telling people to go do fraud. No. People are doing fraud by themselves if they want to fraud. Because no matter what, it is even believed, and there's been some documentation to show that people collected whatever thing that was given to them as bribe or pot de vin, call it whatever you call, sardine, bread, whatever, and yet they took it and went to the ballot box and voted for Tchiroma. That is exactly because there are areas where it's always been believed that those are CPDM, easy take. But the results that are coming up, preliminary results from the polls that are public information, says that Issa Tchiroma Bakary won. And I think that's what's causing a lot of panic. Because this 15 days period, which is a maximum of 15 days, they didn't say minimum, maximum, which means tomorrow the Constitutional Council could convene, after tomorrow, 4 or 5 days from today, just to prove the world wrong. They could do that. But again, all these days, because the more you delay giving preliminary results, people don't even know what to expect from the final results. That's a very important piece. That's a very important piece. And there's a reason why it's important for those preliminary results to come out. So media organizations have the duty to inform the public with preliminary results given to them by ELECAM. ELECAM should be giving them that information simultaneously with the public. Not the official results to say this person won and therefore they are proclaiming this person the winner. No, it could be preliminary pending official certification by the Constitutional Council. Because in simple terms, that is the spirit of the law. It may not have been spelled out that way, but that's what it says in black and white. What do you mean by the results are public after the polls are closed and they are counted in the polling station? Each polling station being public, multiplied by 32,000 polling stations, thereabout. What does that tell you? Easy peasy. So it's not for nothing that you see Cameroonians across the world, and even African brothers and sisters, fellow citizens of the world, everywhere. They are paying particular attention to see what the Cameroonian people can come up with. Because nobody can wrap their head around the fact that people are defending the idea that at 92 years, that is when someone who is old enough to be your great-grandfather, your grandfather, is at his best to give you greatness and hope. Rewind that tape a little bit for a second. It means people don't understand what is at stake here. Let's assume that the current president was a great president, a great statesman. In fact, he said he wants to be remembered as someone who brought democracy to Cameroon. But you know when he made that interview? Long time ago. When was the last time he sat down with a journalist of any media in the country to have an exchange that is not filtered? When was the last time he toured the country and met his people and mingled with them? But that's not to say that's the only way he must govern, but that's just to tell you that times have changed. So when a candidate like Issa Tchiroma Bakary was able to do that among the other candidates, you saw Cabral Libi do the same and even better in some areas where the youth were excited to have him. The only difference is that what kind of opposition does he where does he stand when it comes to opposition? Because the opposition parties of the country are supposed to come together as one bloc. There is a time of national unity that requires mobilization. If you're looking for perfection and you're practicing politics, you are a novice, you're naive. Because it shows that there's not been that maturity for the opposition to understand that if they want to come together and aspire to govern, they must first of all tackle the big obstacle. The point I'm trying to make here is the power of the opposition. Why is the opposition not forming a collective band to defend that which they know? Because if you're telling me that a representative of PCRN was in a polling station and saw that Issa Tchiroma Bakary won in that polling station, he should be honest enough to own up and send that same procès-verbal, send it to Issa Tchiroma Bakary. Because of course, all the representative of that polling station, the different paves the copies are duplicated for as many people that are there as representatives. So imagine if you have 12 candidates, each candidate has 2 or 3 representatives, multiply that by all the people, you see that it's bureaucracy. But yes, assuming that it's multiplied by everybody there, they get a copy. So that copy should not change. But when you hear, they tell you that, oh, the only party that had representative in all the different polling stations in the CPDM party is to tell you that what? That there are some polling stations where they are the only ones that have a copy of the procès-verbal. That's a big no. And which means it's only between them and ELECAM official, the two of them. Imagine in a polling station, let's play the scenario out, where they claim that other political parties did not have representatives because they are the only ones that are deployed all over the country. Why wouldn't they be deployed all over the country? When you've been governing for 43 years and you have the machine of the state, why wouldn't you be deployed in all the polling stations? It's a given, but guess what? In a country where the game is fair, it's supposed to be the representative for everybody. And if you're part of the opposition, that's a no-brainer. You should share the information. You cannot sit on the truth knowing that some other person won. It means you're sitting on the destiny of the people. So when we do these pieces, we try to juxtapose the facts. At the time we are speaking right now, I can do a recap for you. First things first, Issa Tchiroma Bakary declared that the people have spoken, and in their immense majority, it overwhelms him for him to believe that with what they've seen and the numbers they have based on the procès-verbaux that is in their possession, the people spoke and gave him a mandate. And therefore, he's calling on the Constitutional Council to make sure they proclaim the results that the people decided from the polls. Next day, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, comes out and issues a statement, which is a stern warning, indicating that similar instances happened in 2018, and he reacted. And so Issa Tchiroma Bakary should be aware and should know that this is not possible. And might I also say that in 2018, guess who was minister? Issa Tchiroma Bakary. And he also came out and said similar things. And that is where some Cameroonians are having a hard pill to swallow. But do you know what? It doesn't matter. Do you know why it doesn't matter? Because at this time, he is considered reformed and changed because he has apologized for all the things he said before. Because he has come to understand that the destiny of the nation is on his shoulders. And it's almost like saying, it is better to believe that Issa Tchiroma Bakary has the keys to liberation, if it's something we should call as liberation, of the people that voted for him. And therefore, it is important that he first of all defeats the incumbent, and then they will think about what to do next. Which kind of makes sense. Because when you have been governed for that long by the same system, there comes a point where anything goes. And that's why if you heard the people from the Mouvement de la Renaissance du Cameroon, MRC party, which well groomed by Professor Maurice Kamto, they were ready and they said, Le bon diable. They prefer him because they were thirsty. And you can see, as everyone is pointing out, that it seems that the regime had prepared all their arsenal to go after Professor Maurice Kamto and make sure that he cannot stand as a candidate. They didn't see Issa Tchiroma Bakary coming from the side. And he overtook them at a curb. You know, there's a term in Cameroon, they say bending corner. He overtook them. It's almost a funny moment when you think about it visually. And now they have a new kind of worms to deal with. And they don't know how to pull the strings because he understands the system inside out. And just for a synopsis, for those that don't know who is Issa Tchiroma Bakary, this is an engineer of railways. He studied in France, you know, in the 80s and came back to Cameroon to serve. Started serving, worked at Regime ELECAM, did a couple of things. He got arrested when the coup d'etat happened in 1984. You know, being a son of Garoua and having influences and worked, had some close ties with Ahidjo and the regime before and stuff. He got arrested, spent almost 6.5 years, as he says, in jail, and came out and was able to find his way and worked with the regime for some time from 1982 or 1992 and 96, thereabout, where he was Minister of Transport and stuff. And then went out again, created his own party, had also worked with UNDP, created his own party afterwards, the FSNC, which is what he's using up to date, and has kept on his motion. It almost seems like he had a vision that he would one day run for president. And he meant it. So he probably saw the perfect opportunity in June when he stepped out. And he stepped out with good and valid reasons. And when he stepped out, he took very determined measures. And I think that's what resonated with the people. For starters, when Professor Maurice Kamto's candidacy was dismissed in the way it was, which we don't need to go, you can find out, it's not something we want to talk about today. He was one of the few leaders who said it was wrong. Because you can be a strong person, as the regime has been strong for 43 years, and then want to go to an election, and the only person that you see that has the weight to challenge you, you kick them out. That's basically what it looked like. Because there's no way it seems that they could blame the reason and say he boycotted the elections and so on. Okay, if he did boycott the elections, why did the municipal elections not take place before the presidential? Because that was the original schedule, but it was postponed. Okay, what are you going to say about that? So we can point to many factors, but anyways, that's not the topic of the day. So Issa Tchiroma Bakary was one of the few people. Talk about the Anglophone crisis. He's the only candidate that was able to break the ice, was able to be in touch, connect, and say exactly what the people were asking. And he's ready to deliver according to what he said. Because it seems as if with Issa Tchiroma Bakary, the people decided that what do we stand to lose? What is the alternative? Because if we don't do something, at least we know the status quo. The status quo is 43 plus 7, 50. And nobody wants that. Half a century. And nobody wants that. It almost seems like even if the current president is not intending to rule till 50, does he intend to resign and hand over power to somebody? Ooh, big question mark. Because nobody's understanding that we know that this is a fullness of age. He's so blessed to have lived this long. Cameroon is blessed to have a president that has lived this long. But it would have been much more blissful had he prepared a replacement, a transition, so that the country can continue to be peaceful and blessed. Because nobody wants chaos. Cameroonians love their beer. They drink their alcohol. They love their parties. They love everything that comes with it. They are very lively, joyful people, excited, good cheer. I don't think if you go down the streets of Douala, Yaoundé, Kribi, Betwa, even the hinterland, go into the Ngelmenduka, anywhere, Cameroonians are joyful, happy, loving people. And it can explain why they're finding it difficult to have the rage to step up and demand that which they know is theirs. But at some point, sometimes, they say nature will nudge you. If you don't listen, it will push you. If you don't listen, off the cliff. And by the time you're coming down, you might be figuring out, do I deploy my parachute or do I extinct? Because you need to be able to be prepared. And that is where we're saying, brothers and sisters, dear friends, democracy is not a gift. It's a discipline. It requires courage, not chaos. Yeah. It calls for calm action. The photos that were taken, great. The results that have been kept, great. Shared among the factions of the political parties respectively, great. Documenting everything that was seen, irregularity and so on, great, because it may come in handy. And hoping that the law takes its course. And it's good that lawyers have come out. Lawyers have come out, because when you hear the former Batonia Kremona and I think the Bar Association, they should come out and defend the law, the Constitutional Council. They should defend the law, Because even at this ELECAM divisional headquarters that I'm talking about, there is supposed to be, I think, a judge of first instance a court of first instance that was supposed to be part of that commission. They should make sure that those results are not tampered with. Because, again, every candidate should want a transparent, free and fair election process. Because even if the CPDM candidate won, they should want to win in clean, clear, fair and transparent elections. That's it's not as if people should not be anxious that every time they say, oh, there have been irregularities, people that are with the CPDM or the state, they feel like somebody's accusing them. Nobody's accusing nobody. Because that's why ELECAM is supposed to be an independent organ. It's supposed to be an independent body. The world is watching. The world is watching. But most importantly, your children are watching. What story would they hear about these days? Fear or freedom? That is the big question. So there is a call for peace and purpose. There's a call to peace and purpose. It's important that Cameroon stands strong, because Cameroon is at a crossroads. You can choose fear or you can choose freedom through truth. And you can't stay silent. You can demand accountability peacefully, which is what is happening, because never has this much, debate or what you call it, presentation and a lot of fact finding, a lot of investigation been done for an elections as is happening now, because it seems like the whole world is watching. Africa is watching. Cameroonians are very smart, intelligent people worldwide. What's happening at home? So whatever happens, the world will remember not only who won, but how the country responded. Because the youth is supposed to be standing strong. The youth is supposed to be standing strong. There are so many angles I could have dabbled into and touched and tried to bring this together. But I know that there's something to write home with. I've touched on many pieces, and I've listed the candidates of opposition. I've talked about their role, what they've played, what they've done so far, who have said what, and what are the others waiting. The last time we talked about Irami Yodi. He's the president of the movement called MP3, but found himself using a different party to go for elections because his party didn't have municipal councillors, and therefore it was impossible for him to go. And then he was forced to go use the FDC party, which is the Democrat Cameroonese. And that party has come out to endorse the ruling CPDM party, which is strange. And that's why he had to denounce and back and say no. Again, maybe he knows that he's seen enough evidence to tell him that no, he cannot back that result. And when you start to see this, it tells you what? Divide and conquer. Because divide and rule is a tactic that has been deployed for so many, many decades. And it seems as if that's what's been working, because the opposition always looks as if it's divided. When you see candidates like, I don't know, I will call him a candidate or not, Celestin Jammeh, he comes out, he says, Mr. Issa Tchiroma Bakary doesn't know what he's doing. He's paying allegiance to, he's saying some things, that he went to French embassy before. Again, nobody needs speculations. We need facts. Facts that are verifiable and reportable. Clean, clear. And there was an election. The results were there. The counting took place. There are videos, there are photos. It's documented. The various tally sheets called procès-verbaux. Everybody had a copy, those that were present. And even those that weren't present should still be able to have a copy, because that result is not determined by who is present. And if you put all of that together, you can have a sense of where these elections is headed. And therefore, the truth should not be hard. In all things, Cameroon needs to stand strong. May truth prevail. May God bless Cameroon. Until next time, take care.